Welcome to the AI Edge for Enterprise Leaders. This is the show where we go beyond the buzzwords to have real conversations with leaders at the forefront of their industry about what's working, what's changing, and how AI is being used to drive results. I'm your host, Jakaya, CEO of Achieve and Believe Consulting, where we provide AI solutions to help improve your business outcomes. Today, we're diving into practical insights, real challenges, and honest perspectives on how AI is being used to shape the future of your business and industry. Joining us today, we have Tom Tuft, founder of Tuft Law, and we'll go ahead and get started with our first question. So, can you share a little bit about yourself, your company, and how AI is showing up for you in the company, if at all?
So I've been a practicing attorney for about 32 years. I have almost always been in family law my whole career. Early in my career, I saw myself as more of a general practitioner, so I did, criminal, some contracts work, just a huge range of things. I had a employment law case, minimal amount of PI work, but just whatever came in the door. Back in the mid 90s. And then gradually, what came in the door was more and more family law. And I found the bar welcoming in that field and encouraging and supportive. And so I kind of gravitated towards that. So over time, we have grown, and now we have 14 attorneys, and we've made an offer to number 15 as well. So we've been blessed. There's been no shortage of work, which maybe is bad in some ways, but been good for the business. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. I started right out of law school, and now here we are 30 years later with a decent sized firm for what we do. So. As far as AI, we are just kind of at the baby steps of learning, what it does, what it can do. We're constantly hearing ideas and hearing from the promoters of it. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'm taking a lot of classes. I go to things that are about AI, trying to learn and how to direct the firm and what path we may follow. So, um, you know, we are at the stage of we have a small policy about a cautionary policy about how not that we shouldn't be using it unless we're not putting client data in, all those kinds of things, because we just haven't immersed ourselves. So we're just trying to do the cautious, ethical thing as we learn our way into what it can do. So, I, you know, we do some I'll check in with AI on marketing plans and kind of those kind of things, but really we have not yet gone anywhere in a serious way with it yet.
Well, I'm glad to know that you are starting to incorporate it. That is always the first steps, right? You're
Yeah.
looking into it, you're aware. And also congratulations on really expanding your team as well, too. That's always a nice accomplishment. I know you mentioned you kind of dibbled and dabbled before you got to family law. How long has your company actually been established?
So I would say with the four, we have the official name of the firm is Tuft, Lock, Jerbick, and O'Connell. Those four partners started to come together about 15 years ago. So that was kind of the start. So I did it for about 15 years with various people coming and going. But really, about 15 years ago, we started really launching, and I added one prominent attorney in town, then we added another one and a fourth, and so we had four kind of prominent names, and then have added around that. So I mean the founding and the founding of the current firm is probably 15 years ago.
Okay. And what advice would you give someone, um, another attorney who wants to open their own firm, like looking back into how it all started, what's the best piece of advice you could give for that person?
I think it's easier than it was then because you need a laptop essentially to start a firm. And back then laptops weren't a thing. Email was brand new. Faxing was just kind of a coming thing. I mean, when I started, we couldn't file documents with the court by fax. Now it's electronic filing, and I think you can do it, and the hurdles to entry are much lower. And so, if, like one of our attorneys could leave the firm and start their own firm from their living room quite easily. And so, um, it is very doable. There's so much the legal research. We had the Boolean terms back in the day. Natural language from Thomson Reuters was a thing that came in maybe 20 years ago, and then now it's so much easier to just do the research, pull documents together, have the tools at your disposal. So um, I think it would be less scary to me now knowing, just knowing all the tools and resources that are available. So if you need to get away from where you're at, or you're coming out of law school and not finding jobs, I mean, I think the opportunities are there. The communication, the help from other lawyers is easier. You don't have to sit on the phone for half an hour. You can send an email, and have an email exchange in time that's convenient to you. So I'd say do it, and know that you're going to have resources. And I know, at least in our area, there's a lot of support for, if someone wants to practice family law and reaches out, a lot of people will be helpful. So I do not hesitate, is my thought.
Nice. Well, it's nice to know you have overcome the odds. I know things were a lot harder back then, just in general, even outside of, law, like anyone opening a business now, the amount of resources that are available, even especially with AI that can help you, like,
Hmm.
come up with documents or let you know, hey, this is what you need to start a business, like if you don't even know who to go to, right?
Yes.
Um, and so what major shifts have you seen? Because I know you said you've been in, with your business, your company about 15 years, specifically with family law. Like what shifts have you seen in the industry right now?
I think in the old days, everyone had a called home secretaries. Then it's now legal assistant is the accepted term. It was often one to one, and you would dictate into dictaphone. Everyone had that kind of equipment. Now you talk to your laptop and it transcribes for you. That's a huge change. Not, first of all, we do our own keyboarding. It used to be you did not have a computer on your desk. You did not have a laptop. That wasn't lawyerly. That was for your staff. Now you are expected to know and be really good at using a computer. The major changes that have happened over time, and I see AI as the next one. But email was new when I started, and then attaching documents and getting them to someone. And then we have so many lines of communication coming in between phone, email, texting, keeping up with it all. It's a lot, so developing systems structure that works for you. If you're someone that needs structure, and you email every day at 11 o'clock in the morning, that's your time. That's works for some people. Whatever. You just have to adjust to this and create systems that work for you.
No problem. How has the trends that you have seen over time like impacted your business or growth strategy? So whether that's, maybe not you, maybe you don't need a legal assistant anymore, or maybe you're sending, less emails, or maybe now you're incorporating different things that you probably wouldn't have 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely the staffing ratio. And in our field, that interpersonal relationship with the client is huge. And I know that goes amongst almost all areas of practice. But the clients want to talk to their lawyer, I think. Maybe in medical, the people want to talk to the nurse. Are happy to talk to a nurse instead of the doctor, for at least for many things. Whereas I think in family law, a paralegal can't always answer the current question of the day. So we have um, 14 attorneys and 10 other function other, staff people, and three of those are really back office, billing and office manager and that type of thing. So we have seven support staff for the 15 attorneys, direct support staff. And I think that, that's seen as efficient in some ways. In some ways, it's not, but I can communicate with 20 clients in a day, by with just a flow of emails. Whereas in the old days, it's like, okay, we'd schedule a call, and that would be assumed to take a half an hour or an hour, whatever depending on the client. Now it's just so much more efficient for the client, and it's documented in writing. Because a lot of our clients say, "Man, I was in a fog last week. What did we talk about?" Instead of having to dictate a memo after a call, you're doing the email exchange, and we bill hourly, so it's maybe if it's a point one for an email or point two or however you do that, and then there's the email exchange, and you exchange a lot of information. It's memorialized in writing. The client can go back to it to double check and make sure they're asking the right questions. I mean, it's just, I mean, emails obviously, been huge, and I'm, looking for the coming thing. But we used to spend thousands of dollars on mail a year. I mean, if I was $500 a month was our our postage budget, I don't I don't know how often we buy stamps anymore. So it's gotten cheaper, faster, more efficient, but I think also more demanding on the attorney because turning around a letter, you dictate a letter, it gets transcribed in 24 hours, you may get it out. And then it gets to the client, and then they respond either with a call or a letter. And so the pace was different. And now you got to be more on it, and the clients expect responses. Some it's within a day. Some issues are very urgent. So it's definitely demanding. Um, but we've gone with the model of having more attorneys. So I think that's the biggest change. So even an associate, if I have me as a partner and an associate on a issue, the clients are fine talking to the associate attorney almost always. Sometimes they'll say, well, what does Tom think? I mean, that's few and far between, and it's on really big things, typically. But I think that who's doing the work, the staffing has changed dramatically.
And you mentioned like, you might have a client who has a call and forgot, what was said or what was talked about. Do you take advantage of like the tools now where like AI summarizes, even Zoom has that feature. I'm not sure what you use for your calls where they can just summarize the call and then you can just send that summary over to a client?
We have not decided how to incorporate that. I know we have in our retainer agreement that we can do that,
Mhm.
but we haven't yet said, all right, every call is going to be, memorialized in some way, either with the transcript, even a recording of the call. We haven't gone there yet, and it's probably a good thing that we start to moving in that direction, and that's kind of in conjunction with the AI and all the various tools out there. So I think the main I do a lot of arbitration and mediation type work, and sometimes, excuse me, we reach agreement at the end. We want to memorialize the agreement. And so then we'll turn on the recording or the transcription device or whatever in that setting. More for mediations, I guess. With arbitrations, we have it on the whole time. Um, so instead of having a court reporter for an arbitration, which is the traditional method, most clients now opt to a different method, which has typically become the Zoom recording features that exist. I have other tools that if it has to be recorded, I don't just rely on Zoom, although I found Zoom to be quite reliable. Only once have I had a major glitch where it said it was recording and it wasn't. But I have a backup system for, more analog system for recording calls in case something fails. But we're getting there.
No, it is. It's definitely like if you feel like you're saving time now, you'll definitely be saving a lot of time with that, with your emails. Um, and then what do you feel like makes your company stand out against other competitors who are also in that family law field?
Um, I mean, we have like really good attorneys here. I mean, we're really picky about who comes here. And there've been some really good attorneys that are like, it's just not the time for us. So I mean, I really think when I'm struggling with an issue, I can reach out to other people who are really the top family law attorneys in Minnesota internally. So I think that, we really, the quality of our work is really important to us. And I know all attorneys should say that, but we would just really have such a great group here. And that's been a big thing. We've always been kind of technology forward. Also, we've always kind of bragged about we have X, Y, and Z systems. And I do worry that on the AI piece, we're not uh, you know, leaders at the moment. I want to get us back there. Although I don't know that a lot of family law firms have done the deep dive into it. I mean, I'm not, in the various conversations I've had, I'm not hearing that our colleagues like, oh yeah, we've adopted here's how we're working with Chat GPT or Notion AI or whatever the various tools are. So I don't know that we're behind the curve of our family law colleagues.
Mhm.
We're certainly behind the curve of the national conversation in among lawyers. But again, family law may be a little behind the curve in general.
Yeah, I spoke with the podcast I did with another lawyer a couple weeks ago. She mentioned she went to like a AI in law type of conference. So it's definitely being talked about amongst
Mhm.
lawyers, for sure. And so I'm curious too, like when it comes to just family law, like what has been frustrating?
Um, in the AI realm,
Yes, that and or just in general.
I mean, I think in the AI realm, we get clients asking questions that are clearly AI generated. So we'll have someone that's looking to hire us. And it's good that they prepare and think about it, but it's AI generated. It's not about them. It's about what AI thinks they should ask. So we kind of try to have to go around the AI. So I'll get an email it's like, okay, how would you handle this, and this situation? Like, let's talk. Let's have a conversation because it's unlikely that you have all of those 10 things coming at you at the same time. And if you do, you need help immediately. Um, so the public use of AI is they're not always asking the right questions, and then when we talk to them, it's like, oh yeah, here's the path, here's the case plan, but we wouldn't have gotten there just relying on their AI generated information. I think the big thing on the lawyer side is the hallucinations. And even again, we've Thomson Reuters Westlaw has been marketing to us heavily about their AI solution. And there's a case out there where the person relied on theirs and it did some hallucinations. I think one thing, we're in such a narrow body of law in family law. I mean, it's broad if you talk about, business and all the things, but the core body of family law is narrow. So we kind of know it. We know what the statute says. So we kind of will identify if there's a flaw or if a case that's like perfectly on point comes up, we'll know that's probably not real because we know the important, the key, 50 cases that have evolved over my career that have been part of the core body of law. I know them, So I think we will catch that as we start, but that's a fear and a frustration that every day there's another ethics issue about an attorney, nationally who's done something, used hallucinated cases in a pleading, and we're just really cautious about that. So that's been a part of our caution, I think.
Mhm.
And the ethics, putting client data in these things. That's been our policy. We're not putting client data. If we're asking a question, it's generic, like, what statute governs X, Y, and Z issue? And we're not going to say, a detailed query at this point. So we want to get there. But we don't want it learning on our clients' information, and we don't want things to be out in the wild that really shouldn't be.
Yeah. All
So,
right, yeah, that's definitely a major concern in general. Like, I know we call it like AI junk when like you can just automatically tell, especially when people on social media are just posting things. Like, you can tell that it's an AI video, or you can
hmm
tell that it's drafted by AI. And it's funny because I keep seeing memes that are saying like, "Oh, AI is not a person. Use your brain." Like we
Yeah.
still have to think for ourselves. So that's super important. And so I'm wondering, when it comes to AI or just in general with your law firm, what metrics are you most focused on improving?
Most of us are incredibly busy here, but we're hourly. So if we start having AI do stuff for us, and we have, maybe we've created our own model and spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours and pulled in documents or hired contractors to do, whatever, however we go. I mean, how do you still make money if you're hourly? If drafting an 8-hour final judgment and decree dissolving a marriage now takes a half an hour, what does that look like? Um, and how do we do that? And obviously, we have to have efficiencies. Our clients don't want to pay us at our rates for 8 hours of drafting when it's going to become real that AI can draft 90% of that document. Um, so the pricing model is a thing that comes up, and we all have different views. We don't charge a technology fee, although our accountant does. But how do we work that into what's fair to the client and what still allows us to be paid, a decent for our work. So that's a huge discussion item. And the a class I'm taking right now, it's a five session class. That's part of next Thursday's, or no, I mean tomorrow, the Thursday meeting. So I'm very interested in the models people are using for that and how we can ethically do that, how we put that in our retainers, how we are, fair to our clients and ourselves at the same time. So
And so with that in mind, like, do you have any goals that for the firm in the next 6 to 12 months?
I really want to start rolling some things out and have, I want to develop a plan. Maybe that's what I can say. Instead of rolling some things out, here's here's some tools and maybe, it'd be me and we have a small IT committee that we would create a path for us. And whether it's multiple different AI tools or something that's really about, more internal to us, or it's one thing that does everything we need it to do, which I don't think it exists at this time, or something that will query different sources, and obviously something that's going to protect our clients' confidential information. Um, and I'm just thinking about Claude was something that was encouraged or recommended for lawyers for a time, and then they changed the privacy policy for their free version.
Mhm.
And so it became, it does learn on our data. So, when I learned that, we pulled back on our use of Claude, but it may be the paid version does what we need it to do, or they promise to do what they will keep our client data confidential. So that, the evolving policies, it's just such an industry in its infancy, it seems. So I want us to be, again, cutting edge, but not so that we sacrifice client, the quality of our client and their information. So so that's my goal is to have a plan in the next 6 months for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely emerging topic for sure is like the security of AI. So there's all these new AI features constantly coming out, but how are like us as a consumer, our data being protected? Um, even without AI, right? That's always been a concern, cyber
Yeah.
attacks, different things like that. So now that AI is here too, it's like, okay, are we still protecting the consumer? What's the best way to go about it? So I think it's definitely a focus. Um,
I mean, I don't even know what it offers. What the options are out there, and our you and I's interaction is a case in point. I kind of I screwed up some calendaring stuff, and I had some moving pieces in my calendar, and you had to keep working around me. And you said, "Well, let's just chalk it up to your AI." I'm like, no, it was all me. And I'm like, but you saying that, it's like, oh, AI can do calendaring.
yeah,
Okay. Again, this is all new to me. So, doing the searches, doing the request for information, having it check your tone and emails and things, that all makes sense. But then it's like, oh, it can do calendaring, which led me to think, what back office functions can it do? I mean, what reports can it generate for the partners to give us better information? How can it make our billing people have an easier job and be able to, be quicker about or less time consuming for their prep of our bills for review.
yeah,
What exists out there? Because we have a really nice database that we've programmed and created, and they were like, okay, we're ahead of the curve here.
yeah.
And now that AI's come in, okay, what more can it do for us? So there's just, I mean, it's kind of exciting. Um, I'm less scared of it, but it's exciting and cautious, but not really scared.
Yeah. Um, and so speaking of those different challenges you kind of already mentioned, what would you say is one major challenge with your law firm that you would want to change or solve?
Our attorneys range from about 30 to 70 years of age. And so they're at different stages as far as their comfort level with technology. Um, some of the older attorneys are quite comfortable, and some of the younger attorneys are more nervous about it. So I mean, it's not just age based, but that's a piece of it. I'd really like to create a plan that we're all comfortable with. Um, that here's what it can do, and it may be a step rollout of, okay, this month we're going to roll out our calendaring solution. And here's how it works, and have training and videos and things like that. And maybe AI generated videos, which is very appealing as far as training. Because our growth has demanded a lot of us as far as training and, the ethics session that one attorney does and the training on our database and having those created by AI or at least helped by AI is very appealing. So just, I mean, I think the challenge is creating something that works for everybody, knowing we all work in a slightly different way. Um, I mean, again, I'm very intrigued but to find solutions here, but I just don't want it to be, okay, we do a pilot project and four attorneys are bought in and then the others are like kicking and screaming, or want to take a different path. So just, it's finding something that works for everybody here.
I will say that does seem to be a challenge. Um, Overall, I would say in the workspace, like with just like that age range of, you know, older people in general may not be as quick or want to, may fight that change a little bit more
Hmm.
than
Yeah.
younger people. And so it may be something that is an ongoing challenge, but I hope doesn't prevent you still from, you know, adopting anything because, sometimes people may get left behind, right? But you don't want your firm to be left behind because, a
Right.
couple of people are just like, I don't really want to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's having the pulse on the community of what people are doing. But I mean, people have reached out to us like, okay, what are what kind of computers do you use? What kind of case management software do you use? Well, we built our own 20 years ago and or commissioned our own. I don't say I built it, but we commissioned our own 20 years ago before we were even a firm, and it has evolved with us, and we've added modules to it, and our programmer is wonderful. So, I want to be in it and ahead of it. And if I retire in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm leaving behind, a firm in a really good place, at a good place for us to serve our clients and everyone to be successful here. So I mean, I love that kind of challenge, but it's daunting knowing as little as I do right now.
And can you share any success stories that you are proud of with your law firm? I know you've handled probably hundreds of thousands of cases, but is there anyone that particularly stands out and like why does it stand out to you?
I've done over my career a lot of international child custody cases. And so those are sometimes related to parental kidnapping, where they've not like well, I've had cases where a parent has taken the kid and hidden the kid from the other parent. So when we are positioned, if someone called us today with one of those cases, um, I just thinking back to a woman had she was starting to date a guy who was a truck driver, and she and the kid hopped in this guy's truck and traveled out west. My client had no idea where that kid was. And, we were tracking, law enforcement was helping us track down. We were dealing with FBI a little bit, U.S. Marshals a little bit. And then our local FBI office was very helpful. But then we're really dealing with the local sheriff and the kid was found in Montana. So those kind of, I had one that the child was found in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and that was our local sheriff believing my client, and then the local FBI jumping in, and Homeland Security was the one who kind of tracked a lot of the information, and yeah, and so, I mean, that's it, that's the kind of core things that were really helping people at those dangerous, uncertain times. We literally, my client didn't know if her child was going to be found alive or dead in that scary situation. So those are my lawyerly success stories, and how tenacious we can be, and how we're big enough that we can devote a lot of resources to everybody takes a piece, and we've done enough of these cases that we know what the pieces are. Um, so doing the international work is fascinating. I had a case involving Belarus, and I learned that their family law system is remarkably similar to ours, beyond what I expected. Aside from property, with their communist history, property doesn't quite have the same real estate doesn't quite have the same nuance to it, but spousal maintenance and child custody and child support all kind of rang with me in our discussion. So that's kind of those kind of things are just, it's a fascinating area of practice.
Yeah.
And people funneling money to Iran when Iran was under sanctions through Italy. Who knew a family law attorney would be dealing with international sanctions, and international treaties, and the U.S. Constitution in such a big way. I mean, most of my cases are not that kind of cases.
Yeah.
Most of them are, the person down the street, the doctor, the 3M is a big company here. They're headquartered here. I mean, we're a couple miles away from their headquarters. So, a lot of 3Mers. That's more of our cases. But then we get the big, unique, fascinating situations. So we've had a lot of success stories, and as you predicted, I have a lot of stories, but
What about on the other side, like any outcomes that weren't so favorable for you? And when you think about those cases, do you think that somehow maybe AI could have helped when you think back to it, where it could have maybe filled in the gaps or at least helped with a better outcome, possibly?
I'm thinking to a case where my client did not get custody. He was the dad. He was also a victim of domestic abuse, and this is 25 years ago. And I'm just thinking that was the case that stands out as my most disappointing. Um, the judge kind of favored the mom, even though the mom was abusive. I mean, like driving her car into my client abusive. She had a felony conviction, um, but he didn't always do the greatest parenting. Um, just didn't make the good decisions, didn't get the kid into things. So we did that trial, and kind of stunned by the outcome. How could AI, I mean, I don't know. Could we have researched the judge better? Who I knew personally, had cases against her before she went on the bench. That I guess that's the thing is looking at how a judge handles a whole bunch of previous decisions. And if that judge is extremely favorable to a mom, and we don't see that model, and that doesn't exist. This is 25 years ago when moms got custody almost always. But that maybe that's the thing is pulling the judge's decisions over, their many dozens of hundreds, thousands perhaps of decisions, getting them into an AI database and see how we can approach that fits how the judge thinks.
Mhm.
Um, Boy, that's something I haven't even thought about before. Thank you. But that kind of deep dive into how to approach the judge. Because I know it's okay, the last five cases with this judge, here's how they leaned, and I know that stuff, but to be able to pull all of their decisions together and see how they think, that could be a huge help to our clients. Um, Yeah, and in other cases, it's organizing the data. I mean, if I always think if I lose a case, I don't say the judge screwed up. It's like, what could I have done better? I mean, that's how I need to think about it. Could we have organized things in a different way? Maybe we had a judge who's not, is not as comfortable in the numbers. Could we have done it in a different visual format that worked better? I mean, could AI help us with that? Absolutely. I'm not going to hire a graphic designer for my exhibits, but having AI help make them prettier and color and help them be more understood. Yeah, I mean, definitely places to do better in those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, it's very intriguing all the paths this could follow.
With
So.
that line of thinking, like where do you believe leaders should focus their efforts to use it most effectively in your field? I know you're, in its infancy, but knowing kind of what you know now about AI, and the challenges that are in your field, where do you think, other managing partners and founders should put most of their efforts into it?
Well, I mean, we've just, I'm, on the backside of my career, and so we're talking about transitions to the next generation here. So this has actually come up a lot very recently, and who's going to be someone that will be open to learning the new stuff and not afraid. So I think that the thing is not being afraid as new things have evolved. Um, you know, I think here, like I said, from faxing to emailing as just basic things now is there's texting, there's the transcription software where AI tools out there, not being afraid to implement the things that make your firm better. Since you and I have been talking over the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about, back office functions. I mean, we love getting reports from our database, but there's so much more there, and everyone thinks about data differently, especially, numbers. I have different comfort levels with numbers here amongst the partners. So can we pull the data using AI so we can make better decisions and be less scared of, spending money on things like, is this a good use, return on our investment in marketing, or what AI is will have a good return on our investment? And can the data we already have accumulated over 15 years really be used to help guide our future decisions? But I think the big thing is not being afraid to learn and not being afraid to take on new challenges. So,
Nice. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like our viewers to know, about your company, about AI, anything?
I started this 5 week educational program last week, and they talked about this tool does this, and you can use this for this, and the free versions do this, and it's like, okay, there's so many things out there. I had hoped there was like one perfect solution, and just being open to that, maybe that will come.
Yeah.
They started talking about Notion AI, and it's like then I started watching YouTube videos, like, okay, but you can use chat and the various AI tools, and Notion will work with them. Like, oh, how? And so it's just putting it all together, and not being afraid to try, and not being afraid to fail a little bit. You can't fail with client data. Can't fail with client secrets and private information. But what can we do? What can we try? And if we go down a path and it's not working, okay, let's try a different path, because it's just so much evolving, constantly. And I don't have the time because I'm building, um, to keep my finger on the pulse. So just having the tools and knowing where to go and resources, and between people and AI resources, to I mean, it's kind of an exciting time to be practicing, and it's kind of an exciting time for us to be in transition of leadership here. So I'm looking forward to it, but um, just don't want to be afraid. I want to leave behind a really good, successful law firm here.
Yeah. And do you want to share your socials with everyone who, may want to reach out to you or connect?
So we just promoted our receptionist, to our long-term receptionist, to our AI person. So we have had, we're mostly Facebook and LinkedIn. So it's, and our website is tough law, www.tuftlaw.com. And that's she just said, "Hey, Tom, we need some hashtags. Do these look good?" So again, the whole internet marketing thing, there's some lawyers out there that are really good. They're all over TikTok. We don't have a TikTok. We know we're going to have an Instagram. We know we're going to have things. But we're just building content. And I love the direction we're going in that. But, toughLaw.com, I think, is you'll find us.
Well, thank you, Tom, for joining us today on the AI Edge for Enterprise Leaders.
Thanks for the invitation. I've actually learned stuff that you may not even realize today. So thank you.
Today's conversation highlights that while AI continues to evolve rapidly, real impact comes from thoughtful leadership, clear strategy, and intentional execution. To our listeners, I hope today's conversation sparked ideas that you can use within your own organization. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel for future episodes and insights. You can also follow me on social media for more AI insights and real life moments into entrepreneurship and motherhood. I'm Mom Boss J, that's MomBossJay on TikTok and Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn by my name, that's Jakaya McCambry, JAKAYAMCCAMBRY. I'd love to connect with you there. Until then, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Jakaya, and I'll see you on the next episode.